"You're useless overhead," he said, loud enough that even the unpaid interns loitering by the Keurig froze. The new director, Bryce, of course his name was Bryce, stood there with his Banana Republic confidence and freshly whitened teeth, pointing at Claire like he was selecting which underpaid assistant should fetch him oat milk. He'd been with the company for 21 business days. Claire had been the glue for 13 years, not the flashy kind you see in commercials, industrial grade, holds a broken marriage together type. And now, in front of the entire executive team, he reduced her to a post-it. Claire didn't blink. She just smiled, one of those calm, reptilian things that made people uneasy without knowing why. She folded her hands over the manila folder she had brought, notepad inside untouched, because she had a feeling this meeting wouldn't require notes. Just receipts, and she had plenty. The CFO let out an awkward cough. Head of sales looked at his phone like maybe a fire had broken out in his inbox. Bryce, emboldened by the silence, kept going. Something about streamlining and eliminating legacy inefficiencies. Translation: firing the people who actually know what the hell they're doing so he could replace them with LinkedIn buzzwords and a Slack bot named Monica. Claire thought about saying something clever like, "Funny how overhead keeps the roof from collapsing," but opted to keep her powder dry. That smile, it was the click of a safety off. "Now listen, I know how this goes. You're thinking, corporate revenge, slow burn, yada yada. But stick around, friend. You see, 95% of folks who hear these stories never subscribe, and I'm just trying to hit my first 10,000. Help a gal out. It's free, and unlike Bryce's leadership style, won't cost you your job." Back to the bloodbath. Bryce moved on to other optimization opportunities, which apparently meant gutting the client relations team and repackaging the same interns into customer experience partners. Claire sat through it, calm as a sunset. She could feel something ancient stirring behind her eyes. Not rage, no, that burned out years ago after one too many quarterly reviews where she had to justify saving million-dollar accounts with duct tape and charm. This wasn't anger. It was arithmetic. Bryce didn't know it yet, but Claire's name wasn't just on her paycheck. It was embedded in the contracts of every enterprise client that kept the lights on in this building. 90% of them had something called a key person clause. Legal mumbo-jumbo for, if Claire goes, we go. And those weren't vanity clauses. Those were survival pacts. Every one of those clients, banks, pharma giants, tech bros with VC money and zero loyalty, had signed on because of her, not the company her. As the meeting wrapped, Bryce gave Claire a little smirk like he'd just won a staring contest with a houseplant. She stood, nodded, and walked out. No raised voice. No scene. Just that same eerie calm like the air before a tornado peels off your roof. By the time she returned to her office, she was already building a digital war chest, contracts scanned, timelines drafted, audit logs downloaded from the CRM system like she was backing up state secrets. Her inbox pinged with a client message. "Hey, just checking, are you still with the company? Saw some weird reorg stuff." Claire didn't respond yet, she just flagged it. Then another one came in, and another. Clients weren't just reaching out. They were sniffing the change like bloodhounds. Claire leaned back in her chair. The office floor buzzed with oblivious energy, teams high-fiving over meaningless metrics, Bryce strutting past glass walls like he'd invented capitalism. Let them celebrate. Let them reorganize. Let them turn off her badge access and shuffle her into special projects like a broken stapler they didn't know how to throw away. They had no idea she'd already pulled the pin. Claire shut the blinds in her office, not because she was hiding, because she didn't feel like giving the glass wall zoo another peek at what a real professional looks like in survival mode. The afternoon sun painted stripes across her desk as she opened the old contract drive, not the public-facing SharePoint garbage the new regime used to impress vendors. No, this was her private archive, carved out over a decade, sorted by year, client, and which executive had nearly tanked the deal before she stepped in. Didn't take long. Fourth folder in, Enterprise Onboarding 2017 Q3, she struck gold. A PDF labeled Addendum D Key Personnel. She opened it. There it was in black and white. Client reserves the right to terminate without penalty should Claire R. Whitaker no longer be assigned as account lead or client-facing liaison. She opened another, Key Contact. Claire R. Whitaker's removal shall be deemed material disruption unless mutually agreed. And another, and another. Pharma conglomerate, energy firm, fintech unicorn like a graveyard of Bryce's future regrets. They'd all insisted on her, not the company's methodology, not its name, her. This wasn't just ego fuel. This was leverage that could stop a freight train. She clicked open the CRM audit logs, client contacts, renewal history, incident resolution records, and started screen capturing everything that bore her fingerprints, which was basically all of it. She could see where she'd intervened to fix onboarding disasters, patched over botched implementations, even smoothed things with a furious CTO by sending her own kid's Lego Death Star as a peace offering. That deal alone was worth $7 million in ARR. And Bryce, he probably thought ARR was a vitamin. She labeled the folder failsafe, do not delete, and backed it up 3 times. Company laptop, encrypted USB, and her personal cloud. Then she began assembling a timeline. Not for revenge, for reference. If she needed to burn the place down, she wasn't going to light a match and hope. She was going to wire it with C4 and set a timer. Every so often, she'd glance at the hall as the new client success team paraded past, people who'd never handled a crisis worse than a Slack outage. One of them had replaced her as point of contact for their oldest financial client. Claire had onboarded that firm during a thunderstorm, using a power inverter from her car and a hotspot while her kid napped in the backseat. She remembered because the client's CIO had called her a warhorse. Not glamorous, but goddamn effective. Her expression never changed as she moved from folder to folder, document to document, determined, methodical. Like a surgeon laying out tools for an operation she'd performed 100 times before, except this time, the patient didn't make it. Around 5:40 p.m., just as the office chatter started fading into dinner plans and after-work drinks, Claire found the internal escalation email from a year ago. It was buried in a thread about a troubled rollout. Her now-promoted director had written, "We would have lost the account if not for Claire's intervention." That director, Bryce's golf buddy, she screenshotted it, smiled, and added it to a folder labeled Witness Statements. The last thing she did before shutting her laptop was open her notebook. She jotted down one sentence. When someone forgets why the chandelier doesn't fall, it's always the hook, never the light. She wasn't the sparkle. She was the screw in the beam. Bryce had just started sawing. The first call came that Monday at 8:13 a.m., just as Claire was stirring sugar into a coffee she didn't want but needed. Her desk phone lit up with the name Danner, Thomas VP Client Ops. She let it ring twice. On the third, she picked up. Claire Whitaker. "Hey," Tom said, voice tight. "No small talk, quick question. We just got a note from your replacements. A client experience partner named Lark." Claire almost snorted. Lark had been hired 3 weeks ago, fresh off a TikTok internship and one TED talk about synergy. "I saw the announcement," she said smoothly. "How can I help?" Tom hesitated. "They're asking for access to our internal workflow. That was never something we shared with anyone but you." Claire sipped her coffee. "I understand. The new team's probably just eager to familiarize themselves with your setup." "Yeah, well," he paused again. He sent a Loom video explaining how to build trust via asynchronous vibes. "I watched 17 seconds before I considered canceling our whole renewal." Claire didn't laugh, but her mouth twitched. "Off the record, I'd wait before making any sudden decisions. There are internal changes happening. Let's see how things settle." "Sure," Tom said. Then softer, like he didn't mean to say it aloud, "We don't deal with them. We deal with you, always have." Click. Stared at the receiver for a second after the call ended, the words looping in her head like a mantra. Not a threat, not a warning, a fact. By lunch, she'd fielded 2 more messages when a text from a retail supply chain exec. "Do we still have you, or is that clown in the rolled sleeves our new go-to?" Another was an email from a biotech client that read like a breakup letter. "Claire, we're worried. We haven't heard your voice on any calls. Hope you're still there. If not, let us know where you land. No rage, no flaming arrows, just unease, like animals sensing the forest going silent before a storm." Claire replied to none of them, not yet. She copied their messages into her private document log and went back to her screen. Later that afternoon, her internal messaging pinged. It was Jenny from legal. "Hey, weird Q. Do you remember if any of the older enterprise contracts listed you personally?" Claire stared at the message, typed back, "I believe several did. Depends on the client." No emoji, no exclamation point. Let them sit in that silence like it was quicksand. That night, just before shutting down, Claire checked the Slack workspace she'd been unceremoniously locked out of 2 days earlier. She used her admin login, still active because HR never thought to kill the ghost accounts. The client metrics channel was a mess. One junior exec posted, "Why is Danner not responding to our follow-ups?" Another added, "Biotech pulled out of the roadmap meeting, said they're reevaluating service continuity." Anyone know what that means? Claire did. It meant they were trying to figure out how to follow her out the door without breaching a contract. She logged out and stared at the ceiling. Walls of her apartment buzzed faintly with the hum of city traffic and the low thump of a neighbor's bass-heavy Spotify addiction. But inside her head, there was stillness. Calculation. Let the calls come. Let them test the waters. She wouldn't nudge. She wouldn't coax. She'd just be there, the lighthouse in the fog, while Bryce tried to steer a battleship with a broken compass and a mirror. And when the clients started drifting toward her, she'd already laid out the shore. Claire knew it was coming the moment her calendar invite changed from executive strategy touchpoint to special projects sync weekly. No title, no agenda. Just her, a junior analyst named Trevor who still thought synergy was a viable business model, and a shared Google Doc that hadn't been updated since Q4 of last year. The project? Something to do with client journey mapping and narrative funnels. She asked what the deliverable was. No one answered. Char said it was a strategic growth pod. Trevor said it sounded like something Apple would do. Claire said nothing and opened a blank spreadsheet. If they wanted dead weight, she'd give them a corpse that walked. Her badge access changed by Friday. She couldn't enter the CRM server room anymore, couldn't view the executive ops reports. Her Slack channels started vanishing one by one, first client metrics, then enterprise renewals, then even team lunch polls. She wasn't even allowed to vote on bagels anymore. Meanwhile, Bryce strutted through the building like a rooster at a funeral, announcing new campaigns with names like Client 360 Degrees Alpha and Revenue Renaissance. He handed out lanyards with the new slogans, posted inspirational quotes in the lobby that made interns weep from secondhand embarrassment. One campaign claimed to redefine relational architecture in the post-trust era. Claire stared at the flyer and whispered, "You mean phone calls?" Then came the layoffs. Not hers yet, but all the actual people who did the work. Carla from onboarding, Devin from renewal ops, Marcus from escalation support. Each cut was followed by a cheery all-hands email about streamlining for scalability and future-proofing the client interface. Bryce even hosted a pizza party after gutting the West Coast team. Hawaiian slices and layoffs. His idea of synergy. Claire watched it all from her glass fishbowl of an office, where the fluorescent light flickered just enough to give her migraines, but not enough for facilities to replace the bulb. She wasn't angry, not anymore. Anger was useful only if it sharpened something. What she felt now was like standing under a dam and seeing the cracks spider across the concrete. She'd warned them. Not aloud, never aloud, but with every saved contract, every escalation she handled personally, every warning flag she waved in the form of spreadsheet no one read. They didn't just ignore her. They disconnected her oxygen and handed the mask to a man who thought Excel formulas were just a vibe. So she sat in her little side office with the leaking vent and the view of a brick wall, and she worked on special projects. But what she was really doing, methodically, silently, was tracking, watching churn rates rise like sea levels, noting which clients hadn't replied to the last outreach, flagging every internal policy change that violated an active SLA. Every day she came in, smiled politely at Trevor, typed 3 fake bullet points into the shared doc, then logged into her personal dashboard, a duplicate CRM she had archived for training purposes years ago. Just in case. Just like this. As Bryce gave another speech about disruption in the break room with a smoothie in hand, Claire typed a single line into her private notes. "He thinks I've been benched. He doesn't realize I built the stadium." It started with a ripple, so quiet, most people missed it. One of their largest clients, a defense analytics firm that never missed a quarterly review, and once sent Claire a Christmas card signed by the entire executive team, suddenly canceled their upcoming renewal meeting. No explanation. Just a vague calendar withdrawal marked Q2 planning, TBD. Bryce didn't notice. He was too busy launching the Velocity Blueprint Initiative, a PowerPoint monstrosity that featured more gradients than metrics. He posed with the marketing team in front of a neon-lit backdrop that read, "Rethink Everything." Claire, sitting in her half-lit office with no access to her old dashboards, watched the internal chatter begin to fracture like hairline cracks in a windshield. Someone in billing mentioned a delayed invoice. Someone from vendor ops asked why one of the implementation engineers had flown back early from an on-site without completing deployment. No one had answers. Just slack-jawed confusion disguised as escalation tickets. She already knew. The suspended renewal wasn't a calendar error. It was a signal, like a match lit in a dry field. Client was pulling back because they sensed weakness, because their firewall against incompetence, had gone radio silent. They didn't need to explain. They'd seen what happened when the wrong people were in the room and the right ones were reassigned to special projects. The next day, Claire tried to badge into the conference level and was met with a red light and a dead beep. She tried again. Same result. "Try it slower," said the new receptionist, who didn't know who she was. Claire tried again. Red light, beep. "You might be expired," the receptionist offered, smiling with that specific kind of cheerfulness only someone with zero authority can muster. Claire turned without a word and walked back to her floor. No IT notice, no HR call, no announcement. Just that quiet, surgical little beep telling her she'd been cut out of the machine. She took the stairs. She didn't trust the elevators anymore. Back at her desk, she found her email inbox still working, but the folders looked different. Fewer client threads, more vague internal updates. She typed 3 letters into the search bar, DN, nothing. Danner's thread was gone, either deleted or walled off. She reached under her desk and pulled out the encrypted flash drive she'd started carrying again. Plugged it in. Opened her private logs. 3 more clients had missed scheduled meetings. Not canceled, just ghosted. When enterprise clients ghost you, it's not a calendar issue, it's triage. They were watching the company bleed and deciding not to board the lifeboats. They were building their own. Claire stared at her screen. Outside, Bryce was leading a walking meeting. She watched him through the slats of her blinds, talking with grand gestures, probably quoting some podcast about resilience or reinventing vertical alignment. She almost admired his oblivion. It was complete. Walked into a minefield and thought the whistles were music. Inside her private tracker, Claire updated a new section. Client status, early warning signs. She began color coding. Red no contact in 7+ days, orange meetings canceled, not rescheduled, yellow delays on payment or deliverables one by one. The accounts turned. Bright digital flags lining a silent exit parade no one else could hear. At the bottom of the list, she wrote, "It won't be an explosion. It'll be a slow sink. And by the time they notice the water, I'll already be ashore." Claire's resignation email was a single sentence long. Effective immediately, I am stepping away to pursue new opportunities. No adjectives, no thanks, no it's been a pleasure. Just the digital equivalent of setting down a coffee mug and walking out the door mid-meeting. It hit HR's inbox at 4:57 p.m. on a Friday. By then, Bryce was already halfway through a rooftop happy hour, retelling a story about pivoting into leadership to a group of interns who didn't know pivoting from posturing. No one checked the email until Monday. By then, her desk was bare. Not cleaned out, absent, like it had never been occupied. Her framed photo of the dog she fostered during COVID, gone. The tiny succulent Carla gave her after her 3rd promotion, vanished. Even the branded mug with Queen of Q4 retention in Comic Sans was missing. All that remained was a blank monitor and a single envelope addressed to IT, "Please disable credentials." Thank you. But Claire didn't disappear without a trace. At 5:05 p.m., just 8 minutes after sending her resignation, she opened a new email thread, BCCing only a handful of enterprise clients. Just the ones who'd reached out. Just the ones who already knew. Subject line, looking ahead. The message was clean and professional. "Dear colleagues, I've recently made the decision to step away and embrace new challenges. I want to thank you for your trust, your collaboration, and the work we've built together over the years. I'm proud of what we accomplished, and I hope to cross paths again soon. Warmly, Claire R. Whitaker." No links, no offers, no invitations. Just the kind of email that lands like a whisper and echoes like thunder. Replies trickled in over the weekend. "Wait, what? This wasn't communicated to us. Are you consulting yet? Can we hop on a quick call Monday?" Off the record. By Sunday evening, Claire had a spreadsheet with 10 warm leads. By Monday morning, she had 3 verbal commitments and a voicemail from a procurement director that started with, "Please don't sign anything with anyone else yet." Meanwhile, back at HQ, no one noticed her absence until 10:14 a.m. when Trevor, her assigned partner on the fictitious Special Projects Initiative, walked into her office to ask about the client journey draft and found only dust and the faint smell of citrus-scented Lysol. By noon, Slack was buzzing. Did Claire quit? Is she on vacation? Why was her profile deactivated? Bryce sent a company-wide email titled Transitions and Growth, which managed to mention strategic evolution 5 times without naming her once. Legal scrambled to review contracts. HR checked if her exit interview had been missed. Facilities logged her badge as non-responsive. Only one person in the building understood what had happened: the CFO. He stared at his screen, reading one of the exit emails forwarded by a client, and muttered, "Oh no, she wasn't bluffing." But it was too late. Claire had resigned with the grace of a guillotine. No gossip, no postmortem, just the quiet sound of a door that closed itself behind her and stayed that way. By Wednesday morning, the building had lost its hum. Phones still rang, emails still flew, but the energy, the false buzz of meetings and momentum, and Bryce's motivational desk signs was gone. In its place, dread, heavy, static dread that clung to collars and made the elevator rides feel 2 floors longer than usual. The first client dropped at 9:12 a.m. Terse email from Danner's firm. Due to a breach in the agreed-upon personnel terms, we are terminating the current contract effective immediately under Clause 14C. Attached was a scan of the onboarding agreement, highlighted, underlined, signed by both parties, naming Claire R. Whitaker as the non-negotiable liaison. Legal choked on their coffee, but it didn't end there. At 10:03, the biotech client followed suit. Her subject line was even colder: Key Personnel Clause Execution of Exit. By noon, 6 enterprise clients, representing nearly 38% of the company's quarterly revenue, had pulled the ripcord. No shouting, no legal threats. Just cold, surgical exits backed by contracts they themselves had insisted on years ago in long-forgotten boardrooms, because they knew Claire was the only reason things ever got done right. The director, Bryce, blessedly ignorant Bryce, was still calling it market jitters. He strode into the war room wearing a quarter-zip fleece and a pep talk, waving his hands like a man trying to swat away a hurricane. "We just need to reassure them," he said, voice rising. "We get on a few calls, send out a branded deck, loop and lark, someone finally snapped." The VP of Legal, eyes sunken from 3 nights of redlining panic, tossed a stack of printouts onto the table. "Thud. Those clauses," she said, flat as a parking lot. "Key person dependency. Her name is in all of them, Claire R. Whitaker. If she's not in the picture, they have the legal right to walk with 0 penalty." Bryce blinked. "Wait, she was just an account lead. That can't know," the CFO cut in, voice ice cold. "She was the account." He opened his laptop and mirrored his screen to the room. A spreadsheet filled with client names, revenue values, clause references, each one marked terminated, each one citing Claire. And at the bottom of the screen, a line of emails, all from former clients, requesting proposals for independent consulting engagements, each to Claire's new address, each CCing someone on the board. Silence fell like a trapdoor. Bryce opened his mouth, closed it. Someone in the room coughed. The VP of marketing quietly slid her chair back. A junior exec started typing something into Slack, realized how bad it looked, and slowly shut her laptop. Outside, the breakroom espresso machine hissed. Somewhere down the hall, an intern was crying. The chairman of the board, who'd flown in that morning from New York for what was supposed to be a quarterly strategy review, looked at Bryce like a man realizing his car had been parked on the train tracks. "Get me her file," he said. "Now." Bryce tried one last time. "We can recover this." "We just need to." "Recover what?" CFO interrupted. "The clients, they're already with her." In the corner of the room, the legal VP picked up her coffee, sipped it, and added, "And if I were them, I'd never come back." The clause bomb hadn't just gone off. It had vaporized their leverage. Claire hadn't raised her voice, hadn't sent a single threatening email. All she did was walk out the door and let the paperwork do the talking. Emergency board meeting was held at 7:30 a.m. in a windowless conference room that hadn't been used since the fire drill 3 years prior. No catered breakfast, no cold brew, no chairs, just folding tables, a dozen increasingly pale executives, and the stench of panic sweating through wool-blend suits. The PowerPoint slide up front read, "Client retention, crisis internal response strategy," but nobody was strategizing. They were triaging. 6 clients gone, 2 more frozen, and legal says another 3 could trigger exit clauses before the week's out, the CFO reported, flipping through a packet thick enough to be used as a weapon. The chairman rubbed his temples. How the hell was this allowed to happen? Silence. Then HR spoke gently. "There is one option. We could reach out to Claire. Maybe she'd consult. She resigned, Bryce barked, arms crossed, voice cracking. She ghosted the company. Don't reward disloyalty. The chairman gave him a look that could have curdled milk. Disloyalty? Bryce, she was the reason we had loyalty. Maybe we offer her a temporary engagement, legal chimed in cautiously. Short-term contract. Contain the exits. Smooth things out, reassure stakeholders. The chairman nodded. Fine, I'll call her myself. He stepped out of the room, phone pressed to his ear. It rang once, then again. Then voicemail. Claire's voice was calm, clipped. Professional, you've reached Claire Whitaker. I'm currently unavailable. Please leave a message or direct inquiries to my business email. Beep. The chairman didn't leave a message. He just stared at the carpeted wall like it might answer his prayers. When he came back in, his face told the room everything they needed to know. She's not answering, he muttered. Not yet anyway. Then it happened. A ping from the boardroom assistant's laptop. Email just forwarded from the CEO's inbox. Subject line, proposal request consulting inquiry. The sender, Thomas Danner. The recipient, Claire R. Whitaker, CC'd. The CEO, body of the email. Hi Claire, we're interested in engaging your independent services to support continuity during our transition away from company name. Please let us know your current availability and rate sheet. 3 lines. 2 sentences. One unspoken truth. She wasn't circling the company like a vulture. She was already eating. No one spoke for a full minute. The head of strategy quietly turned her laptop around and closed the lid. The marketing VP let out a small, broken laugh. Bryce stood there, color draining from his face like a Polaroid developing in reverse. She's not coming back, the chairman said finally. She doesn't need us. And that was it. The whole board, every high-powered ego in that room, sat in a silence that weighed more than their combined salaries. They weren't holding a meeting. They were holding a wake. Outside the door, the office lights flickered on for another workday. But inside, every person in that room knew the real work had already left the building and taken the future with her. The letter was delivered by hand. No email, no HR escort. Just a plain envelope, placed neatly on Bryce's glass desk by the chairman himself. It sat there for a long second before Bryce, sweaty, unshaven, and 4 espressos into his panic spiral, picked it up like it might bite. Termination of employment, effective immediately, no pleasantries. No thanks for his transformational leadership. Just an itemized bullet list outlining a catastrophic sequence of failures. Loss of 6 enterprise accounts, totaling $48.2 million in revenue. 4 additional contracts suspended or delayed due to key personnel concerns. Legal exposure via ignored contractual dependencies. Reputational damage from breached service level expectations. Attached was a PDF titled Client Exit Timeline. Every single entry referenced one name, Claire R. Whitaker. Cited as primary reason for trust withdrawal. Cited as non-replaceable interface. Departure cited as trigger for contract termination per Clause 14C. The final page was a breakdown of his severance package, once bloated and golden, now slashed to a thin slice of what had been promised. Marked clearly, performance-linked outcomes. Reduction enforced under Section 7D. The same kind of clause he'd bragged about using to motivate results. He sat there, pale and panting, as if the office itself was collapsing inward. Whiteboard still had his doodled funnel diagram. Someone had scribbled Client Renaissance under it in blue Expo marker. A joke now, a ghost of hubris. Outside, nobody made eye contact. By Friday, Claire had quietly signed 3 enterprise clients to her independent consultancy. 2 of them were former clients. One was a competitor that had watched the whole circus unfold and wanted to make sure she was on their side before the fire spread further. He didn't throw a party, didn't post a vague LinkedIn update with champagne emojis and on to new adventures. No grateful for the journey caption. She simply updated her Calendly link and replied to one more email that started with "Heard you're free. Can we talk?" Her new office was a corner nook in a coworking space. Plants, quiet jazz, her old mug, queen of Q4 retention, now ironically crowned atop her bookshelf. She looked out the window as a spring rain hit the sidewalk. Down below, people hustled into buildings just like the one she left behind. Bryce, gone. No announcement, no farewell post. Just a deactivated profile and a job listing quietly posted under Interim Director of Client Strategy. The board never reached out again. Claire never returned their calls. She didn't need to. She'd done what few ever managed, burned a legacy, not with fire or fury, but with silence, precision, and a clause they'd all signed and never read. No screams, no vengeance speech, just one woman stepping out of the blast radius before the bomb went off. Appreciate you sticking around, you wise old rebels. Smash that subscribe button, or this fossil might just cause another epic fiasco.